Oh, no, it's that. Welcome everyone to session number 3 of Machine Learning Paper Writing Club, Surrey. And welcome to GDG Surrey. This initiative is by GDG Surrey community. We also have GDG Machine Learning Paper Writing Club. We host Build with AI events, almost 2 to 3 events per month now. We also collaborate with other communities around here, around the globe, actually. So yes, I am Preeti. I am the organizer for this club. We have a team of 5 to 7 people. Some are still with us in this organizer window. Some left, but new people joined us. This is a volunteer-led opportunities, and people come, join us, they learn, they implement the learning, they transfer them to some other professions, and that's how it all goes. We try to create a community where everybody learns together, collaborates, and get something out of it. And that something is really the knowledge base. We have been partnering with local companies and global companies too. And now we are almost done with 30 plus events, and it's just been, we just started last year. We have 814 members at present on our homepage, but on LinkedIn we have around 1,100 members and growing. We are around, we are getting popular by day. I'm very proud to share this part of it. Okay, I hope it loads well. Okay, this thing. So kinda, we are almost everywhere, I would like to say. But this is something that I love about online events, that, people from across the globe can join, work together, learn together, and, implement it together. So that's pretty much about GDG Surrey. We welcome all initiatives related to AI machine learning and in general well-being. So if there is any initiative, you can always let us know. You can directly reach out to me or send us an email. And now, without further ado, I will move on with this session. Anuj, over to you.
So I'm unmuted and let me start sharing. So today's discussion is more on assume that you have published a paper. What are the next steps in your journey? And what are the some of the critical aspects that you should be careful of uh, before publishing the paper? It is one thing to publish the paper, and then it's also equally important to have that work recognized properly. Otherwise, this is a vast community of researchers, and it's very easy for your work to get mixed up with other person's work and you losing the credit, For that reason, I recommend all of you, all of you, and it's completely free, is to get a ORCID. ORCID is for anybody to get completely free, and it's a persistent digital identifier that will centrally tie any of the research works that you do back to you. For example, Anurup, right? So there might be several Anurups globally, but to tie to Anurup Keshav, our Anurup Keshav, if there is a ORC ID which is available, uh, which is tied to your email to your profile. Every time you publish a research paper, no other Anurup will be able to steal it, and it's centrally tying. Uh, and it provides you the central visibility, but most critically, let's say you worked on an amazing research, uh, and now there are companies or institutions who are willing to fund your research. They would really be wanting to uh, actually validate that the research was really done by you. And when you typically submit the paper in the author information, let's say you submit a paper to IEEE, uh, in the author information, along with your name and email ID, you provide ORCID. And by providing the ORCID, you're able to then display that, yes, I was the person who actually um, did the work. Let me find a paper that was published for you guys to see how it looks. Uh, Let see if I can put it on the Chrome, this paper. So let me share. This is one of the papers I have published. And if you see, along with my profile details, I have a unique ORC identifier, which is tied to this person and this email ID and my profile. And to get ORC ID login, you just Google it. And this is the link you go here. And if you have not created, then you actually sign in and register, and you provide very basic details: family name, email address, and any additional email address. It's very simple as registering for any other stuff. But this is the first step that you should do before even you submit a paper for review. It's imperative. It's absolutely imperative that the work you do is absolutely tied back to yourself, and nobody else is able to claim that they did that work. That's why setting up ORCID is critical, and ORCID is again completely free and widely recognized digital identifier in the research domain. So once we are done with the session, I recommend all of you to at least go on the ORCID website and register yourselves. Um, Prefer to use your permanent email address rather than your school email address or your company email addresses. But this is where it matters a lot, right? You might change your name in the future or any other personal details, but you'll be able to still tie back the entire chain of work back to the single person yourself using ORCID, regardless of your name or any other personal information changes. So yeah, um, please make sure everyone has this. There is no cost involved to it. Moving on to the next. Um, Next thing, uh, once your paper is published, right? It is important to have the impact of the papers shown. And how does the world typically look for your work is through your published work on the commonly known indexing pages, Google Scholar being the highest rated of all. But there are several others like Scopus and few others. Google Scholar is widely regarded. And after your first paper has been published, and if there are some, let's say there has been some time that has been passed, your paper, if it was published in a reputed place, it will be indexed by Google Scholar. So, and once the paper is indexed by Google Scholar, you're able to show that uh, in the uh, in the like, in the place. So, and Google Scholar is one of the very widely used places for a lot of people, a lot of companies to sort of look you up as a serious researcher, and 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 see what you're doing and what your history are. So let me show you how it looks like. So this is a Google Scholar profile uh, of mine, my name. Then I typically do not like to associate myself with any company, so I will put independent researcher, and the detail of it will be all the research papers that have been published by where I contributed as an author. And for example, this paper was, it tells you the link where this paper was published and what was the abstract, and people are able to look it up that, okay, I have about 9 different kinds of academic scholarly publications till this point, and how this work has been influenced as well. So if you see, there are citation counts. So this is the one of the papers where somebody cited my work. So it appears this is one of the um, patents I have, which is again cited. Typically, you do not need to add your papers here. Once some time has been passed, your papers typically appear here automatically. Uh, for example, the paper that was recently approved and published, which I know is still not listed here. What I have seen, typically they take 2 3 weeks for it to appear here. All the major companies have the major publication houses like IEEE or ACM or Springer Nature. They have good ties with corpus, Google Scholar, and everything, everybody to sort of show your work. So when we look at the Google Scholar, there are a couple of important important parameters to look at, right? So there are some straight off the bat counters, like for example, if you see citations are 36, so there are total citations from my work. Then comes the H index, which is the indicative of uh, quantity as well as quality of your publications. Um, uh, what it means by is simply put, H index means I have at least one paper with one or more citations, whereas I10 index is how many papers or publications I have which have more than 10 citations. So right now everything looks 111, so it might not make a lot of sense to you guys, but this is one of the co-authors I worked with. Uh, C has H index of 2. What does that mean? C has at least 2 papers which have two or more, which have been cited by 2 or more people. So it shows the qualitative and quantitative impact of your work on the industry. And if you see some of the very leading researchers, they'll have really, really high H index. I-test index C does not have any because there are no papers. If you see her profile, there are no papers who have more than 10 citations. We don't need to typically do anything uh, to improve those. These are organic improvements. But here you can see this history builds up over the years, and you can really get some good stats about your work. Uh, so, and we'll come back to this tab soon for another important topic. Uh, so coming and making again, ORCID plays a critical role here. Again, I cannot emphasize more on ORCID. ORCID is just like protecting your digital identity in research world. Uh, so when you write a research paper, you would want to have it tagged through the keywords and through uh, indexing. Keywords allow the paper. So in any research paper you write, we have talked about keywords. Based on those keywords, different people will be able to search your paper, and indexing different indexing. So Google Scholar is another indexing engine. They typically scroll, or the journals themselves will submit your papers to Google Scholar, and they will show your uh, show your details. That's why when you write a paper, it's important to actually uh, put the keyword. Let me share this tab again. Uh, Make sure you have your name and everything properly, and also include the relevant keywords that are there that are necessary for the paper to be indexed, so that your paper is easy for searching. And again, we are completing the complete loop here. Is we are tying our work back to ourselves properly, and helping people to find our work and read our work, and see what's happening. So going to the next slide. Uh, I need to share this slide. So once you've written your paper, you have put your author details and everything nicely. We typically submit a paper to a journal that we had discussed in the past, and each journal has its own timeline. So first step when you submit the paper, typically somebody from the editorial team will look at your paper, make sure the paper is aligned to the journal scope. For example, if a journal is like a quantum computing journal, and you're trying to submit a paper which is on the data science, they might not take it because their work is in the different domain. Or more it happens, let's say if there's a journal which is on the medicine uh, medicine research side, and you submit an AI paper, they might ask you to submit it somewhere else. So that's an editorial review that happens. And once you pass the editorial review, actual technology reviewers are assigned to your papers. That's where your AI experts, ML experts, data scientists, all of those kinds of people will review your paper for the accuracy and technical depth and the novelness. Um, and once they might give you some major comments on the review feedback, or they might give you some minor comments. Depending upon their comments, you have to rework on the paper. And once you rework on the paper, after that, yeah, you submit the copy, and then it typically gets accepted for publication. And then your paper is live, as we have discussed in the past. The paper might be live through open access where anybody can go and read the paper, or it's behind the closed access where the reader of the paper might need to pay some money to get the copy of the paper, or maybe get a subscription and this kind of stuff. Um, Typically, it takes anywhere from what I have seen is uh, once you submit, it typically takes around 3 months for a paper to get reviewed and published and be out there. But 3 months is a very very very, very small timeline, to be honest. It can easily go to 6 months or longer for more reputed journals. Some journals take years. So when you're selecting a journal for submitting your paper, you have to think a few things. How long they take to, most of the journals will tell uh, how long they take to review to uh, publish. And it's, so for example, let me share this. This is a AI journal. Most of the journals you have to look for this kind of information. For example, this journal claims to be very fast in open access. So they'll tell they are open access, and they are submitting your paper to other databases, corpus, and all of these databases. And they typically take 19 days to review your paper. So somebody who's claiming they're fast are saying that they still need about 3 weeks time. And after that, the paper goes for your edit, and then you might work on it and then resubmit it um, after the comment, and then it gets published. Some of the IEEE journals easily can take up to 3 months. Uh, so you have to plan it uh, accordingly. If you have some sort of timeline, let's say you're looking for grad school admissions or something like that, you have to plan according to the journal so that your paper is live by the time you apply for your admissions or something. So moving on, I think you're not moving on. That's about topics. We don't have much to go in theory. But another thing that I wanted to show you guys was uh, in Google Scholar, right? Uh, what happens is you might select a journal which is not directly working with Google Scholar, and you might want to manually add your paper. And I believe Google Scholar allows you to do that. So let's see. Yeah, this button. Add article. Add articles manually. So here you provide what kind of paper you had and what kind of details you need to put in. This is extremely, extremely rare that you would ever need to do this something like this. Uh, Add something manually. If you really selected a journal which was completely new or not working with major databases, in that case, I would actually recommend to avoid those kind of journals. A reputed journal would at least work with Google Scholar to have your papers indexed. But some cases this might be beneficial, and that's okay to add your papers. I've seen people use this to add Medium articles as well, but I suggest not to add Medium articles or your LinkedIn posts here because they don't add a scholarly value. They don't add the research value. So another thing that is very famous is ResearchGate, which is another online community of of your research work where you'll be connecting with a lot of fellow researchers and aspirants, and it also indexes your publications. So, for example, it's saying I have 6 papers here, one preprint, and I have two full text papers that I have made it available for somebody to request. So, if somebody is interested in your work, they can send requests like this. See, this person has requested full access to my paper, and if it's in my jurisdiction, I can send the paper to them. If it's not there, then I have to decline the request, and it again gives you the same stats as Google Scholar. So this is another good place that where you should make your profile of your once your first paper has been published and indexed. And these are some of the very important yet very common and easy to get indexing places for your current work. With that, I'm open to questions for this section.
Thank you. Please unmute yourselves for any questions, and then we'll move forward with how to identify research gaps.
Hi. Thank you so much for this. It was nice. Kind of had a question about the research gate bit. You said something about it being in your jurisdiction, right? How does that work exactly? Like, say for example, you've published it to a journal that does not give you rights to have an open access to it or something like that. Would that be out of your jurisdiction in that case? Yes.
Yes. So, for example, let me share this tab again. So this is a preprint paper that I have made it available on the ResearchGate, and I have made it completely available because this is a free paper that if you had gone through my profile on Google Scholar, you still will be able to land it. So here I can host my paper, which is free for anybody to read without paying anything. But let's say, for example, any of the IEEE papers, I will not make it available because those papers, like for example, the paper that I was showing you guys earlier, that paper is not available on ResearchGate. I have not uploaded it on ResearchGate because that paper technically belongs to IEEE. But this is a preprint that was free for anybody to read anyways. I'm centralizing it here for easier access.
Oh, okay. I see. So as long as it's not your, it does not belong to you. You are not allowed to add it in your profile in ResearchGate. Is that right?
Correct. So research papers have few type of licenses, right? So one is restricted license where you cannot sell it or distribute the copy of your paper because the copyright is with the publication house. And some publication houses provide open access papers, and open access papers can have license like Creative Commons, and the Creative Commons licenses allow you to sort of distribute your work uh, more broadly. But preprints are something that you can easily make it available because that's not really tied to a journal, but it's like a very rough draft of the paper. For example, this preprint is some 30 pages long, but the actual paper is like very trimmed down version, like 10 pages or something. So uh, that's a judgment call that you need to make, but make sure you do not violate any copyright issues when you publish your paper uh, on the uh, ResearchGate. It's more for like it's a social media community of avid researchers to collaborate and contribute. I typically tend to even put the presentations as well that I do. So for example, I have uploaded a presentation that I did uh, some time ago in January. I have uploaded the presentation and now it's available for people to view and read through and ask. So for example, this presentation, for example, we could make it available for you guys to go through whenever you want to sort of come back to it again. So ResearchGate has not just the research papers, but other academic publications that you might want to upload it for your audience to view, where you are the complete author of that work. It's not like you're just author, but like complete owner of the work or the paper or the presentation. Does that
I
answer your question?
Yeah. I did. I did. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Anuj. I will start sharing my screen. And just one thing, some of us know about you, but there are one or two new people. Would you like to tell about yourself? I know it's late, but yeah, Anuj.
Oh, so you want to? So oh, okay. You want me to introduce
Introduction.
myself?
We didn't go with it.
So hey guys, this is Anuj. So I work at ADP as tech lead, and I do research and I build applications. That's what I like. I love sort of doing work, coding to research to writing to speaking. I love doing everything, and most importantly, interacting with talented people like you. You know, this is like a breeding ground for talent to come up and sort of make some great contributions to the technology industry. And GDG actually provides a good platform for everybody to sign and show their skills and make themselves marketable in the industry, you know. So happy to be connecting to all of you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I will now move forward with the next part of this. Okay, I hope you see my screen. Okay, perfect. So when we're talking about research, um, we also want to talk about how do we find the research gaps, right? It could be just, first of all, if you're writing a research, it doesn't really have to be a research gap, okay? It could be something new, but again, that's a research gap of a kind. So let's just see what we can do about it. Finding a research gap is really hard. Now you can start, you can think that you'll start by reading papers and uh, it will it will provide you the research gap. It may not. Now, while you're reading lots of papers and you're going through articles, it may also feel like that everything is already been done. People have already achieved whatever there was to be done, whatever the research was supposed to be done. But then again, something like OpenAI happens, right? The language models become available to people to talk to, right? So now think of it like there's never a shortage of the topics of the research gaps that is there. Okay, every method, every experiment, every topic, you might feel that it's already there, but that's not true. Research is, think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. Now, some areas are well covered, and some uh, contradictory evidence, and others are like completely missing pieces. But our job here is to find where these gaps are within these things, right? Um, so how do we get started? Do we just Google like research gaps in AI, or do we read through papers a lot? What do we do? So here's the thing: these Googling, reading the papers, everything can become a part of it, but it can be done in a structured way. Okay. Let's see. If you see, I've already listed. So systematic literature reviews. When you read the authors, they would provide systematic literature reviews, right? What are those exactly? You're looking at, when you look at the systematic literature review, you're looking at the summary of everything they have done there, right? They highlight the evidence, like is it weak, is it strong, right? And they also highlight the points to future direction. So let's if you Google right now on Google Scholar, if you check right now and you're like, okay, I want to research AI in healthcare, right? And then if you try to literally search for systematic review of AI in healthcare, you will find those kind of papers. So you can use keywords like systematic review. You can go to Semantic Scholar. You can do the same thing there too. And Future Learn is another platform, right? So you try to find papers with these specific keywords. This is the simplest thing. This is the simplest way you'll get to these papers, and you have people mention the weaknesses and the future directions already mentioned to you, right? And that's where you find the research gap. Future work and limitation sections in the paper is what you would want to look at again, right? Now, a paper on, say, there have been talks about it, but let's say there is a paper and you find that it's about bias in AI hiring tools, they might say that um, this study only tested gender bias, and the future could be to explore racial and age bias, right? And that's it. There you have your gap. There you have the research gap, right? Now you can start from there. Next step, use AI-powered research tool. Yes, I just put them in the chat. Please take a look at these tools. There's 𝐚𝐿ICIT, Connected Papers, Research Rabbit, and I'm not sure if there are any more. There's one tool that I'm trying to build. It's about 3 agents trying to help you conduct your research. So 𝐚𝐿ICIT.org, they are the tool that summarize research papers and finds gap. So you can literally provide it from one domain. You can pick the best papers and you can provide it, and it will find the gaps for you. Connected papers try to help visualize the research connections to pinpoint what's missing. So that's another way to get started. And then Research Rabbit, I haven't used these tools personally myself. I did come across their mention, so I wanted to share. But Research Rabbit itself is it maps the topics. I don't know how does that work, but I would love to explore it. So you can literally start with AI-powered tools, and you can find your gap, right? It's easy now than ever, I should say. And then look at the track, this industry reports and policy documents. Now, the big, not big, but many people think that research gaps, they just come from academia. But sometimes industries highlight problems before researchers do. So I'll give an example. So the European Commission's AI ethics report in 2021 highlighted that most AI fairness studies focus on gender and race, but very few explore disability bias. And that's a research gap right there, right? So sometimes industries would highlight it before even the researchers do. And I also, personally, this is what I feel, that sometimes when this kind of wave comes, like AI driven, suddenly it's LLMs everywhere, then the entire research industry also starts to form around this, and other topics, they stay at the ground and nobody talks about them. But if you look at the resources and these reports and everything, you might find your gaps there too. And when the wave is going on, you can all still stick to what was already there to be researched. Now, this is something that really may work out for some of us who love networking. Now, networking I feel networking shouldn't just be for job hunting. For researchers, it could be a gold mine for finding these research gaps. You could go meet researchers, people, they're talking about what kind of tools they use, what do they like about them, what is it that they lack. They wish that this could have been added to some features, to the product features or something, and that's it. That's where you get a point to get started, right? So talking about networking for researchers specifically, you could go to AI/ML conferences like IEEE, ICLR. There are many conferences worldwide, depending on where you are. If you really want to start as a researcher or you're already one, that's where you find your crowd, right? At these events, you also look at the keynote speakers. Many keynote speakers are researchers, established researchers, and they discuss about open problems in their field, right? And who wouldn't want to work on those gaps when established researcher kind of validates them, right? Now, if none of this works, and you're someone who just likes to go tinker around and try to see what people are seeing, because if it is the majority of people talking about something, it might really be a problem. That I mean, it might really highlight some problem. So go to Reddit if you use, go Twitter if you use, research gate like Anuj mentioned, right? You might find people talking about something they're not happy with, or recently, talking of Reddit, recently I went to Reddit for just one thing. There is I wouldn't quote the company name. There is a company name, a company that that creates, not create, what's the right for it? The product is the sanitary pads, right? And there is a glue that's being used for the usage of them, but that glue is impacting women's health. It's bad. Think of it that glue is more like those glues which will stick forever with whatever the cloth is. Now, if that glue sticks with the cloth forever, how is it good for the skin, right? So I went to Reddit and other platforms to search for it, search about it, and it seems that this is not just a problem that I face; it's a problem that many, 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 many women faced, and that's your idea of researching, and it's going to make an impact, right? Just probably just highlighting this in women's health will help. Okay, I'll come back. So now these are all the methods or process you try to find the research gap. And it could be you experimenting with something, experiencing something, using some kind of tool, and you're like, okay, I don't know why would they not provide this kind of feature. Let's do it, right? And you start experimenting towards it. Now, tell me, which of these methods, any of these, have you used before? If you were to start researching today, as well, like which one would you try first? You can type in the chat. Okay, how about which one are you already using other than these, if there is? AI tools. Okay. Limitation. Yeah. I would go with Google for yes. Yes, why not? And great way. Great way. SLRs, somebody is already putting work in there, for you. So yeah, let's start from there. And I use NoteGPT. Right. I use NoteLM too, and that's also a very good tool. Might not be as good, like it might not be as dedicated as for a research purpose, but it's a great tool, Notebook LM too. I will try NoteGPT. Thank you. Yes, so we are using, some of these ways already, some of these processes already to try to find the research gaps. Now let's move on to brainstorming research ideas, right? We have the gap. We know what we want to research about, but uh, but like the topic, how do you uh, narrow it down to this strong idea and then topic, right? That's another thing. So I found the research gap, and now what, right? The another thing about it is also that because research gap exists, it wouldn't always mean that it makes a very, very good research topic, right? Now, a strong research idea should be interesting, it should be feasible, it should be impactful, right? So as I said, how many people would benefit from it, right? That is one thing. Having said that, if it is research that would uh, that's solely your interest, right? And you do not mean anything else from it except for this thing that I don't know, whatever it is, I love doing this. Go ahead with that. But for people, and to make it more impactful, yeah, you would rethink about the research topic. So even if you found the gap, you would try to find that, is it really interesting? Is it really feasible? Is it really impactful, right? Now, a um, couple of techniques. First, or I forgot to mention, I guess, we should try to reverse engineer the existing studies, right? Now, not should, we can try to reverse engineer existing studies. Now, let's say there is a study on AI for detecting diabetic retinopathy, right? Now, that might conclude that this model works well for adults, but not for children. And why? Because there's limited pediatric data, right? Now, you know the gap. You know the gap. Now, your research idea would be probably developing AI models for pediatric eye diseases, right? Now, that's how you can reverse engineer. Like there is already an existing study. Now you need to find that data, and then you can literally implement the same study, but for children. Yes, so that's what you can do. You can narrow it down to some level with reverse engineering. You can do the mind mapping. You can combine fields. Now, mind mapping, I have just put the link for Miro in the chat, but you can use um, any tools, right? It's just a visual way to organize your thoughts and ideas. So instead of writing things down in a list, you create a diagram, and that branches out for a central concept. So you can use mind mapping to brainstorm. Then you can always do the way that we talked about, like industry-driven problem solving, right? Look at real-world challenges where, in our case, I'll say where AI is struggling. It could be depending on what domain you are in, but considering we are into AI ML session, so consider where AI is struggling. So there was a case in AI and fairness domain a couple of years ago where a company wrongly classified black faces as gorillas, and that was due to database bias, dataset bias, right? Now, in that scenario, if you were now, I think it's getting better, but if you were part of that research back then, and you identified this thing that, okay, this is wrongly faces are wrongly being classified, you would probably try to come up with a solution to build racially unbiased AI image classifier, right? Which now is already there, but that's the industry driven problem solving right there, right? Are we all following, or am I out of breath? Just me.
Yep.
Take some water and
Mhm.
I know. Well, this is good though. This is where this kind of activities are done more uh, easily in a group rather than doing alone.
Oh,
And
yes,
that's where the collaborative community really is helpful.
definitely. This, yeah, it gives you this, I don't know, these study groups, smaller, especially smaller study groups. This gives you, um, it keeps you going. It keeps the momentum, and I think that's how you do not lose the track. And plus, you learn from each other. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next thing, we have our we have our like research gap, right? We have our topic now, and now suddenly we don't know like how do we create a strong research question, right? What makes a research question a strong question, right? I would say think of it, avoid avoid making broad topic and make it specific, researchable and actionable, and that's where you will come with when you have those thoughts, then you will be able to create a good research questions. Now, there is a framework, that not just one. Yeah, there is a framework for it that we can follow just to be on track, right? The PICO framework. Now, with who are you studying? What's the variable? Like you see, all of this. Um, if you've come across a research question that was too vague, right? You wouldn't get to know what am I actually going to learn from this, or whom is it going to benefit? Like something like how does AI impact healthcare? It's very very generic, vague topic, and it would be good to read just for my overall understanding. But um, this does not really actionable to some extent, right? And it's impossible question to what should I say? It's too broad, right? So study this, just to go and study this. How does AI impact healthcare? It's going to that study is going to be broad too, right? So we need a structured way to break our topic down, our question down into like very much specificity, and then of course it makes the researchable components as well at the same time, and that's where this PICO framework comes in. Now it's very widely used approach in applied research in healthcare specifically and AI applications. It just helps you ensure that your research questions are specific and measurable. Now, let's talk about this population, right? This could be a specific group of people. It could be an industry or even a type of data set, right? So who are you studying? Are you studying a group of people, an industry, a data set, right? So if we are, for an example, if we are studying AI for, say, diagnosis, diagnosing lung cancer, right? Our population could be smokers over 50 years of age. So we are studying smokers above 50 years of age, right? If we are studying fairness in AI hiring, our population could be job applicants from different demographic backgrounds. So we are studying job applicants from different demographic backgrounds, right? So when you are trying to ask the questions, ask yourself, who will my research impact? Okay. How, sorry, does my study focus on a particular demographic, a region, or a data set? So that's how you start creating your questions, okay? The intervention, right? What's the variable or action you are introducing? Okay, what is the factor you are testing in your study? Now, this could be a new AI model. This could be a treatment in healthcare. It could be an algorithm, or it could be a policy change, right? So in healthcare AI, sorry, an intervention could be a deep learning model for early cancer detection, which we already have, they already exist, but that's how it was, right? That's the variable there. In AI ethics, intervention could be bias correction techniques applied to hiring algorithms. So again, the question we need to ask ourselves when we are following intervention part of it is, what is the key change or a method I'm testing, right? Am I introducing a new approach, or um, am I evaluating an existing one, right? That's where you will cover that part. Now let's come to the comparison part. What are you comparing it to? Every study needs a benchmark, and what are you comparing your intervention against, right? So you have a method you're testing, for example, what are you testing it against, right? Now, this could be a traditional method, the benchmarking, it could be a traditional method, it could be a control group, or an old algorithm, a previous algorithm, right? So let's say you introduce a new model for diabetic diagnosing, right? And now you will compare it to a benchmark that's already set in the diabetic in the healthcare for that kind of diagnosis, right? If you have AI-based resume screen, you will compare it to, you'll probably hire a human recruiter, and some specialist from HR department to learn about the selection process, or now in the AI agentic AI times, you would probably train an agent as well on to do the same, so that you can measure it against something, right? So your questions would be, when you're following this one, this comparison parameter, your questions would be, what is my research question comparing, right? How will I know if my intervention is better or worse than the current method, right? It could go either way. Now let's come to the last one, outcome. What do you expect to happen? Every research question must have a measurable outcome. Now, in the first session we did, there was a question, what if it's inconclusive? What if the research goes inconclusive, right? But then again, you had set a measurable outcome, and then whatever you found, you could put it in your research for the future researchers, right? They'll make it conclusive, but if they know what you were trying to do, what was the thing in the measurable outcomes you described, then they would know that how your research were headed, like to in which direction, to what goal, right? Now, this could also, as a researcher, for you, this would help you with like improvement in accuracies from models perspectives as well, fairness, efficiency, user satisfaction, right? I'll go back to the bias detection example. It could be as simple as reduction in bias in AI models, right? So what would be the question we'll ask ourselves? That what's the expected result of my study? This, whatever I'm trying to do here, what is the goal of it, right? What's the result of it? And what metric will I use to determine the success for it? Okay, so now I'll put it all together for us. What we are trying to, why do researchers think think that this framework works because it helps us refine broad topics into specific researchable questions. It forces us to think critically about comparisons and our expected outcomes at the same time. And also, it makes sure that our research is clear, measurable, reproducible, right? Now, I hope you take this PICO framework and whatever you're writing, you try to question it accordingly on this framework. Now, we do want to combine it with this final criteria, which is feasible, interesting, novel, ethical, relevant. We all know the definitions of these things, but just to go over with it, I'll say, okay, question: can this study actually be conducted, right? But like we can say this hiring algorithm is biased. This is happening, that's happening, but to make it, let's say, fair, do we really have the data, right? So yes, is the data available, right? That would be probably in the feasible thing. Interesting, does the topic excite researchers and the industry? It could, well, in the interesting category, I would also add what Anuj said. Suppose you're preparing your paper for particular conference, right? You want to, particular conference, and the overall theme of the conference is something different. So even if your paper is amazing, it might not really be interesting to those fellow researchers because the domain might differ and to that particular industry itself. Now, for the novel, we'll say that let's look at whether our research is new or original or not, right? Is it ethically sound? Relevant? Does it really matter to anybody, right? So those sort of things. So I think with this, I will just jump into ethical considerations, and I will speak just for 𝐴𝐼, that it's really powerful, but we need to consider using it responsibly. So when you're writing, and I'll say this from the paper's perspective, and when we use tools, models and everything, try to use it responsibly and see your research, your work, it does not cause harm to anybody. As much as the models are biased, we as humans, we have been biased as well, and that's why the data exists the way it exists. So to ensure fairness, transparency, accountability, try to at least in your research papers, try to cite whatever you're using, whatever resources you're using, right? So try to mention them. Okay, try to give credits to whoever's work it is. And well, I think we are at the end of this presentation, but I would say there is one very good researcher, but he is in healthcare domain. His name is Greg Martin, and I got his research methods, how he codes them is, and probably next week we try to understand them better. But he also goes with like, there are a couple of methods he suggests: statistical, qualitative, how to do a literature review, and then study design, randomized control trials, which is healthcare specific, and how to write a scientific paper. So I guess check out his videos if you can. But yeah, probably next week that's what we'll do. And with that, I conclude my session. Thank you. And feel free to ask any questions if you have, or discuss.
Informative.
Thank you. I need to take breaks and pauses, I guess. So anything stood out so far? Anything you would like for us to specifically consider for next session. So like in the previous session, we did go through introduction and abstract. How do you craft good introductions and abstracts? Is there anything that you would want us to consider for next session?
Yeah. And then again, I'd like to remind the group because I see a couple of new people, right? Doing a research may sound daunting on the outset, but if you keep up at it little by little every day, every week, just then it actually will complete. All you need to have is some sort of a rhythm about it. Let's commit to maybe 15 minutes or half an hour a day, and you will realize in like a month's time or a 2 3 weeks time so much you have achieved, you know. So, and with all the tools that Preeti mentioned, right, you can really have a jump start compared to the time it would have needed, like let's say 4 to 5 years before, like when Gen AI was not available. So uh, on the surface it sounds daunting, but maybe ask ChatGPT how to break down your research activities in manageable chunks of 15 to 30 minutes, you know, and commit to doing those 15 to 30 minutes every day. And when you work in a group, you can divide and conquer. You do not need to write the entire paper on your own. A good research paper will have at least 4,000 words. So that's a lot of writing, and you can't just like write a story out of nowhere. There's a real words which have meaning behind them. So divide and conquer really works best as well. If you're like a group of 3 to 4 people, then it's just 1,000 words. Then it becomes just like an essay for your class, or maybe just a report for your job, you know. So yeah, I don't think it's daunting. Okay, it's not that difficult. You just need to get started and keep up at it. That's it. Just imagine if you had to write 1,000 words, 1,000 meaningful words over course of next 3 weeks. I'm sure everybody in this group would be able to do it. Everybody, I have no doubt. It may take some time if you're like conducting actual research and publishing a new method to try out this experiments. But if you're
Yeah,
like a review type of research paper, then you can easily finish it.
absolutely. Thank you. So if we don't have any questions, I'll stop sharing. And let me put this email address. Anurup, I'm sharing this email address.
Okay.
Whenever you feel
I could
comfortable.
send it to the chat right now if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Just give me a minute. Also, I just had a tiny question. I believe the last session, you guys mentioned that uh, during in the next session you'd be talking about hooks. Uh,
Mhm,
I was kind of wondering because for the document that I was writing, right, I
mhm,
was going on about abstract and everything else.
mhm.
So that kind of reminded me of the hooks that you told that you would be talking more briefly about. So yeah. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Thank you. Thank you for reminding that. This
yeah.
week, I think this slipped my mind. But
Mhm.
for time being, because I also don't want you to wait for the like entire week. I will
Right.
share a couple of resources as well.
Okay.
Uh, and we are on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
connected. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So I'll try to share some, or I'll at least like do the email for everybody so that everybody has access to them.
Right.
But thank you for reminding.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Um, I believe it should be in the chat now. Yeah.
It, I'll
Hopefully,
stop.
it's open for all. But yeah.
Right. Perfect. I'm going to read it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Also, kind of did that. I mean, started drafting this yesterday. I mean, today for you guys, but yesterday for me. And I compiled it like today, 20 past 12 or something. So that's why the the date shows tomorrow for you guys. So there's that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I then saw a couple of typos here and there that I'm going to correct.
Right.
But if you guys would look past that, I think should be and give me like feedbacks. That I'd appreciate that truly.
Absolutely. We'll do
Yeah.
so. I'm excited you gave me this next week's read already, so I'm excited about that.
Okay. Also, since I mentioned that I have limited knowledge in the field, right? So it's supposed to be a highly mathematical, research topic, but then there's not a single equation in the paper. So there's that. Probably over time, I'll slowly get the hang of it, like just like how Anuj mentioned, like it's the slow process and staying consistent that matters. So yeah, I have cured a few YouTube courses and videos again for these kind of things, so I will probably go through them. Yeah, thank you.
This sounds exciting. You're already doing a lot. Yeah, I hope we'll all come together and your paper would be amazing.
Thank you.
Let me save it. Okay, perfect. I'm going to stop recording and we can continue our conversation later. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you next week as well, in next session as well. Thank you.